And it gives your child a chance to reflect on his or her learning in testing habits. So now we'll hand it over to Ms. Wilson.
Good evening. Let's look at the reports that your students brought home. We're going to look at the reading diagnostic report, and then we're going to look at the math diagnostic report. We're going to look at their grade level placement, their domain-specific information for each subject, and then we're going to look at the growth using the student report.
So if your child is with you or near you, this will be a time to say, hey, go grab that report they gave you on fourth period today, because we did send them home, and we hope they made it home to you. But if not, just give us a call, and we can definitely send another one home tomorrow or on Monday. And if you don't have it, there are some examples on the slide that you can kind of go through and still follow along with us.
Okay. So if you'll grab the reading diagnostic results that your child brought home, there are two separate reports, like Dr. King said, one for math and one for reading. So we're going to look at the reading one first. When we look at the reading report, the reading is going to consist of 6 different areas. 3 at the top, the 3 bullets at the top, phonological awareness, phonics, and high frequency words, are things you probably remember from when your child was in elementary school. Phonological awareness is sounds and sound awareness, and being able to listen for sounds and create sounds and produce sounds. Most of our students tested out in phonological awareness at Davis Emerson, so that's awesome. Phonics is connecting sounds and spoken words to letters in written words, and that means just being able to decode a word that you come across when you're reading. High frequency words is recognizing often seen words, common words that we see, and each grade level has high frequency words that are common to that grade level, and this is mostly an elementary level area. Then we get into the more challenging parts of comprehension and reading, and that is vocabulary, comprehension literature, and comprehension informational text. And we all know vocabulary means hearing and understanding and knowing words and the meanings of words and using them in sentences. Comprehension literature has to do with reading books like stories, plays, poems, comic books. That would be comprehension of literature. Whereas comprehension of informational text has to do with articles that you read in the newspaper or magazines, or that you see in your science and history book. And even reading charts and graphs and tables in math would be a part of comprehending informational text. So those are the things we'll cover when we look at the reading report. So this is a picture of what the reports look like that we sent home today. If you have one in front of you, your students will look just like this. Look at the bottom. At the bottom, you'll see a blue bar graph. That blue bar graph has a number attached to it, and on this particular one, it's 595. That 595 is a scaled score. Like Dr. Lewis said earlier, no grades are attached at all to this. This just lets us know the level at which your student is performing in the middle of the year in whatever grade level that they're in. So the scaled score is actually a number that just shows us based on the correct number of questions, or the questions your child answered correctly on the test. It helps us know what grade level the student is performing on. So take a gander up toward the top, and you'll see that big green area, that large green area. That stands for the child being on grade level. If your child's bar is up in that green area, that means that they are performing on grade level. And if they're below that area, that means we're going to work as hard as we can with your student to get them up to that green area so they are performing on grade level. So that's our goal area. It's a big area, so that's really good that that child has a lot of area in which he can perform and improve. And so it's a very attainable area. Look at the gray line that you see right above the blue bar graph. That gray line is the typical growth. So if this child works as hard as he or she can this year, they'll get to that typical growth area with just a little bit of work. That's typically where they would be performing at this age or in this subject or at this grade. Look on up a little further and you'll see the stretch growth, and that is a dotted line. And that dotted line is where if the child does their personalized pathway on iReady, like Dr. Lewis and Dr. King said, they get chances to go to the computer lab 2 days a week, one for math and one for reading. If they're really working hard, listening in class, doing their homework, and getting that support at home from you, then they'll reach that stretch growth level. And for this student, that would be well within the grade level area. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions, or are we taking questions at this time, or do we want to continue on and look at the math?
I think that's fine. Let's stop and see. Do a check-in.
Okay. Or if you have a question and you want to put it in the chat, and then we can address it specifically just to you, that's fine too. So we'll just go on to the next slide and tell a little bit more information about the reading report. So if you look at the right side of the child's report, you'll see some green, red, or yellow dots. Remember earlier we talked about phonological awareness, phonics, high frequency words as being sort of an elementary level set of skills. On this particular one, this child tested out on those. They scored on grade level. Green pretty much represents grade level. And then if your child had a red dot, that stands for being 2 grade levels below level. And on this child's report, vocabulary and comprehension literature were areas where that child needs a little more support. And so working with their teacher, doing extra reading at home, because good readers, they're good readers because they read. And so reading can help support vocabulary and comprehension literature, and also working on their personalized pathway with iReady. And then the yellow dot represents being just a little bit, they're almost there, just a little bit below grade level, but almost on grade level. And this person would need a little support, this student would need a little support with informational text, which we all know is much harder to understand than literature because it is science and social studies specific. Reading the newspaper, reading an encyclopedia, or looking up something on Google for a research project, that would all be considered informational text. And it is a little bit harder to grasp and comprehend.
Ms. Wilson, we did have one question that I'll address. It was a question about, not sure if anybody else has this question, but is iReady tailored to IEPs? And so not exactly. So basically when they take the test, it gives them a personalized pathway based off of the results that they have. So there's nothing that we go and put in and tell the computer, hey, this student has an IEP or anything like that. So the iReady pathway is like an intervention program. So it's additional support to whatever else your child is getting based off of their IEP in the classroom and the goals that were set by the IEP team. iReady is just another layer of support to help move that child along and hopefully see some growth and gains where it relates to the areas that they need to focus on.
Can I add something to that? And the teachers do have flexibility to assign specific lessons based on the IEP. So if they're working on a particular goal sensitive program that we're using, it's K-8, so they can go in and assign specific lessons that may help the children work towards their goals that might be in their IEP. So it's not, while it's not necessarily tailored, but the teachers may, a special teacher may cater it that way if they see fit.
Okay, so if you'll get the next report your child brought home, we'll talk about math. The reports are so very similar. The only difference between math and reading are these 4 bullet points. These 4 bullet points are the domains in which your child is being tested in math. And all students, all the way from kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade, are tested on these same 4 bullet points. They are number and operations, and that has to do with the 4 operations: adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And as the kids get older and up into the middle school and high school, you'll see decimals and fractions as part of that number and operations section. The next domain is algebra and algebraic thinking, and 6th graders are starting to do algebraic equations. I've been in some 6th grade classrooms at Davis Emerson, and the teachers are all doing something to do with isolating the variable or finding the meaning of the X or the letter that's in a math problem. And so that has to do with algebra. Then we have measurement and data, and we know that that has to do with measuring things with a ruler, telling time, understanding charts, graphs, or tables. And then geometry, we know that's shapes, classifying shapes, talking about shapes and their attributes, and describing them and what makes a square be a square or what makes a triangle be a triangle. So that's geometry. And the results you can see look exactly like the reading results. The numbers will be different, but the picture that you're looking at will be just the same. At the bottom, you'll look at the blue bar graph again, and you'll see that this student scored a scaled score of 448. And remember, that just has to do with how many questions the student got right when they took their diagnostic. And it gives us a number that we can then plug into a formula to let us know how far that child is from being on grade level or how far that child is above grade level. So it just gives us an idea of what to do, to the direction that we can take as teachers to help that child get to where they need to be. So once again, look at the green area at the top, and that green area stands for being on grade level. So anywhere in that green area would mean that child is on grade level. Then let's look at that dark line, that kind of gray line above the blue bar graph. That's the typical growth. If your child works hard in class, does what they're supposed to do, then they'll probably reach that typical growth. But if they go a little above and beyond and they work on that personalized pathway each week, you can even work on it with your child at home. Plug them into Clever, log into iReady and do some lessons. They're already there and ready to go, personalized just for your child to help them reach their goals. Then they can reach that stretch growth. And that stretch growth will get them closer and closer to closing that gap that there may be to get them on grade level. And then we talked about the domains, adding and subtracting, finding the variable for algebra, using a ruler or a clock or a thermometer, and looking at shapes. And you can see that those domains have those same little green, red, or yellow dots that represent whether or not the child is on grade level or almost on grade level or a little below grade level, and we need to do some work to help that child. So if you look at this report, which one do you think represents the child needing to work pretty hard to get up to speed and get up to grade level? And that would be the red dot. Algebra and algebraic thinking is the area we really focus on with that child and make some goals for that child, maybe assign some lessons to their personalized pathway to get them where they need to be, because they're a little below grade level there. Remember, the yellow dot represents being close, so close to grade level. Maybe a little bit of scaffolding would get that child up to grade level. And then you can tell that this child is really proficient at geometry and number and operations because they have a green dot, and that means they are on grade level.
All right. So again, I'm Miss Hill, and now that you all have those score reports and you know how to read those score reports, there are certain things you can do to help your child at home so that they may